Hi, first graders. Hope you're having a great day so far. We are going to continue our money study in math today, and tomorrow we're going to get together and actually play some money games together. I'm going to introduce you to a new coin today that we haven't yet learned at length or discussed in detail. But before I do that, I want to review the two coins that we have talked about, the penny and the dime. So if you remember how much 1 penny is worth, whisper it to me. You're right, 1 cent. If you remember how much 1 dime is worth, whisper it again. You're right, 10 cents. Okay, so let's just do a little quick review about dimes and pennies, and then we'll get started and move on to nickels. Here we go.
This is a penny. A penny is worth 1 cent. You can write it a few different ways. President Abraham Lincoln is on the front of the penny. The Lincoln Memorial is on the back of the penny.
And remember, that's the older pennies have the Lincoln Memorial on them.
100 pennies equal $1.
This one we're going to skip for right now.
This is a dime. A dime is worth 10 cents. You can write it a few different ways. President Franklin Roosevelt is on the front of the dime. A torch with an olive branch to the left and an oak branch to the right is on the back of the dime. 10 dimes equal $1. This is a quarter.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. And now we're going to hear a little bit about nickels. Here we go.
Cool. The second coin is the nickel. The nickel is a coin made of both copper and nickel that has Thomas Jefferson on it. Like the penny, the nickel has gone through a change in recent years. It doesn't look the way it has always looked. Traditionally, nickels feature the side of Thomas Jefferson's face. But in 2006, the nickel was changed to show the front of Thomas Jefferson's face instead of just the side. Old nickel, new nickel. Old nickel, new nickel. Old nickel, new nickel. Okay, you get the idea. Unlike the front of the nickel, the back of the nickel has stayed the same through the years. It features Monticello, which was Thomas Jefferson's house. A nickel is worth 5 cents, which is the same as 5 pennies. Because remember, a penny is worth 1 cent. So a nickel, being worth 5 cents, is worth the same as 5 pennies. The nickel, it's a coin that's the color silver. It's got a house on the back, which is Monticello. And depending on how old the nickel is, it either just shows the side of Thomas Jefferson's face or the front of Thomas Jefferson's face. And it's worth 5 cents. Awesome. Well, the third coin.
All right, and we already heard about the third coin, which is the dime. So I think the nickel, one thing that I found really interesting about it is that it's made out of nickel, which is a kind of metal, and copper. So I always thought before I heard that it was just made out of nickel, but I was wrong. Even though it's called the nickel, it's made out of nickel and copper. Okay, so let's hear a little bit more about nickels. Nickels are U.S. coins. They are worth 5 cents. 1 nickel can be written 5 cents, or like this that we've talked about, this is also another way to write 5 cents. 5 pennies make 1 nickel. 20 nickels make $1. And then here it's showing you that 2 nickels make 1 dime. That makes sense because a nickel is worth 5 and a dime is worth 10. So that means we know that 2 nickels are 2 fives and 2 fives equal 10. Thomas Jefferson is on the front of the nickel. Jefferson's house is on the back. His house is called Monticello. And then it says, here's Thomas Jefferson. Remember, this is the older version of the coin. Now they look different because they show the front of his face. This shows the year the coin was made. This one says 1974. Here's Monticello. This one says E pluribus unum is the United States motto. It is Latin for out of many one. So that I actually did not even know. So this is a motto is like a saying kind of. So this is, I guess, stands for something in the United States. And this says the value of the coin, which is 5 cents. The history of the nickel. The United States Mint makes money. The U.S. Mint is part of the U.S. government. The first U.S. 5-cent coins were minted in 1792. They were made from silver. So we already know about the U.S. Mint because we learned about it when we talked about pennies and dimes. So here it is again. And then it says, our United States Mint location is in Denver, Colorado. So that's a city in Colorado. The U.S. Mint stopped making silver 5-cent coins in 1873. A new 5-cent coin was made in 1866. It was called a nickel. And this is something that you might have noticed in the other 2 coins. It says Lady Liberty was on the front of the U.S. nickel in 1912. We learned that Lady Liberty, or the Statue of Liberty, was also on the front of the penny and on the front of the dime originally. So it's funny that all of these coins actually had the same face on them for so long at the beginning when they were first making coins. The nickel design changed many times. Thomas Jefferson was put on the nickel in 1938. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, does anybody remember what coin he's on? He's on the dime. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted to honor him. Honor him means kind of like celebrate him. Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd president of the United States. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. Making a nickel. Nickels are made from nickel and copper. Nickel and copper are metals. At the U.S. Mint, machines cut metal into discs. A coin press stamps designs on the disc, just like we've heard before. The U.S. Mint sends nickels to banks. Nickels travel all over the country. Each nickel has its own history. Okay, now here's that timeline that we've seen before. So this is the first nickel with Lady Liberty in 1792. Then a little bit later, almost 100 years later, about 70 years later, they made a new design. And then in 1938, they finally put Thomas Jefferson on, and he's still on it. Although we know now it's not the side of his face like this, it's the front of his face. Here's some fast facts. The 1792 5-cent coins were the first coins minted in the United States. According to the U.S. Mint, the first 5-cent coins may have been made from George and Martha Washington's melted silverware. Wow, that's really cool. So George Washington was the first president of the United States, and it sounds like they melted down his silverware, like his forks and knives and spoons, and made them into coins. That's really an interesting fact. The U.S. Mint made nickels with silver from 1942 to 1945. The U.S. Navy needed nickel to make ships during World War II. The U.S. Mint makes more than 1 billion nickels each year. Okay. All right, so that was our 3rd coin. We've now learned about pennies, nickels, and dimes. Pretty cool. You've already learned all 3 out of 4 coins. So we are going to do some more practicing with nickels, or you're going to do it by yourself on Seesaw. Let me show you what I have for you to do. Okay, so you'll see today that under activities, there are 3 different ones that have to do with nickels, and they're all probably going to look familiar to you because they're very similar to the ones that we did for dimes and pennies. Okay, so the first one, well, actually, we'll just do this one first. So this one says nickel identify. So this is just like what you did with the dimes the other day. You're going to go through and try and find all of the nickels in the picture. And then you can either circle them or X them out or highlight them, however you want to do it. Now you'll notice that the nickels that they used are the older ones, the ones with the side of Thomas Jefferson's face. Lots of times people get confused between the nickel and the quarter. This is a quarter. The nickel and the quarter look very similar to each other because they both have the side of somebody's face and kind of a long ponytail in the back. The way that I like to remember it, if I'm looking at old nickels, is on the nickel, Thomas Jefferson's ponytail, if you can zoom in, you can see it's pretty straight. I like to think that his ponytail is straight like a pickle. Pickle rhymes with nickel. So that helps me remember that if I see a straight ponytail like a pickle, it means it's a nickel. You can see on the quarter that his ponytail is a little bit curlier. So that helps me remember that the curly ponytail is a quarter and the straight ponytail is a nickel. You'll remember that the nickel also has Monticello on the back. So you'll see some of these have the back of the nickel and some have the front. Okay, the second activity that I want you to try is just like the one that you did for pennies and dimes. So you'll see in the middle, there's the older nickel here, the front and the back. It says to write the name of the coin, how much the coin is worth, how many of the coins does it take to make $1, and then write a math problem using the coin. I would love for you to write a real number sentence. So something plus something equals something else, or something minus something equals something else. A lot of you have been writing things that are not number sentences. So we're going to practice that a little bit more next week, but I know you know how to do it. So if you can write me a real number sentence, that would be great. Okay. Also, we have not talked about how many of the coins it takes to make $1. So what you're going to have to do is, we know that $1 is worth 100 cents, right? So if we know that a nickel is worth 5 cents, that means we have to count by fives until we get to 100. So see, how many times do you have to count by 5, or how many nickels do you need until you get to 100? So good luck with that. I know you can do it. The last activity that has to do with nickels is a sheet that has just nickels and pennies on it, no dimes. And you're going to be adding up the nickels and dimes and coming up with the answer to exactly how much change there is. Now, just like the other day, this is a really good sheet because at the beginning, they always put the nickels first for you. That means the nickel is the bigger coin, so you can always start with the nickel because it makes it much easier. So for example, the first one only has pennies in it. So you're going to add up those pennies and then write on the line, tell me how much money there is, how many pennies, how many cents does that equal? And then you're going to do the same thing here, here, and here. So I have 1 penny that's worth 5 and 1 nickel that's worth 5 and 2 pennies that are worth 1. So I'm going to have to count out and see how much change I have. 5, 6, 7. So you know your answer here will be 7 cents. Same thing in the piggy banks. You're going to add up the change in each bank, and you can just write the total amount either next to the bank or underneath, wherever you can fit it, just as long as I can tell which one. All right, so that's it for nickels today. Like I said, tomorrow on Friday, we're going to be doing some fun money games together all as a class. And I'm excited to see what you come up with. I'll talk to you later. Bye.